Chapter 61. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 61. You are listening at novelfull.audio. King Wenxuan was trying to figure out who was plotting against him when his head of security burst through the window. Your Majesty, he announced. Wenxuan waved off the other guards. Report. Did you find anyone? That the security chief stood. Yes, Your Majesty, but it's complicated. My men brought her back to Jingzuexuan. Where was she? The king's voice was flat, betraying nothing, but the security chief knew that calm was the prelude to a storm. Your Majesty, we found her in a shack in the Jingqing East Street slums. She was covered in cuts and bruises, naked, and violated. Her mouth was full of filth. I had to do something. I took off my shirt, wrapped her in it, and carried her back. Forgive me, Your Majesty. I didn't mean to see the crown princess like that, but I couldn't just leave her there. Wenxuan didn't reprimand him. It couldn't be helped. Anyone would have done the same. Thank you for understanding, Your Majesty. Now that she's safe, I have another task. The palace warehouses have been robbed. Discreetly investigate my brothers. See if they're involved. Yes, sir. I'll follow your orders. He saluted, then leaped back out the window. Just now, the steward reported that the palace granary was also empty. He couldn't imagine how anyone could move that much grain, gold, and silver without being detected. How could the palace miss something so huge? It would take thousands of people, and they'd have to slip past the guards unnoticed. Only the most skilled martial artists could pull that off. Were the palace guards drugged? He felt fine. And the guards swore they stayed at their posts all night. It was like something out of a ghost story. Everything just vanished. Wenxuan emerged from the hall. Tell the prince to return to Jingxue Pavilion immediately. I'll be waiting to discuss something. Yes, Your Majesty. The steward bowed and headed for Princess Wenxuan's courtyard. Yun Weining was still unconscious. The previous night had been too much for her to handle. Huan Ping and another maid had just finished cleaning her up and putting her to bed. Seeing her covered in injuries, Huan Ping felt a pang of pain, especially her lower body, which was raw and swollen, and her back, which was torn. While applying ointment, Huan Ping said, Chu Meng, the crown princess is back. You need to get to the Prime Minister's mansion and tell your master and mistress. Huan Ping feared the palace would silence Weining to save face. Chu Meng understood the danger. Sister Huanping, don't worry. I'll get to the Prime Minister's mansion as fast as I can. Good. We both came from the Prime Minister's mansion with the Crown Princess. We need to report back. When Chu Meng left Jingzuexuan, she snuck through the backyard door and slipped out while no one was watching. Once outside the palace, she ran full speed to the Prime Minister's mansion. Reaching the gates, she wiped her brow and rushed inside without waiting for the gatekeeper. Lin Qianru and Yun Qian had been waiting in the lobby since morning. After sending people to search for Weining, as time passed, Lin Qianru grew more anxious, pacing the floor. Yun Qian sat motionless, his face a mask. He knew someone was trying to ruin Xiao Ziheng's reputation and prevent the emperor from adopting him, and Yun Weining was caught in the crossfire. He worried about her. The prince was thrown into the Huan Pavilion. Who knew where they'd dump Yun Weining? He searched every brothel in the capital, fearing she'd be left in a similar state. Suddenly, a female voice interrupted his thoughts. Master, mistress, the crown princess has been found. But she's in bad shape. You need to come to the palace right away. I'm afraid it'll be too late to see her. Lin Qianru grabbed Chu Meng. What's wrong? What happened to Inger? Chu Meng's arm throbbed, but she understood the mistress's anxiety. I don't know where they found her, but she's covered in cuts and bruises. She's still unconscious, and it looks like she was violated. Huanping and I were afraid the palace would silence her to save face, so I snuck out to tell you. Lin Qianru released Chu Meng, her face stricken. She turned to Yun Qian. Let's go to the palace now. We have to save Inger. Yun Qian frowned at Chu Meng's report. He had anticipated this possibility. but that didn't make it easier to accept. He quickly rose to his feet and urged a swift departure. The streets were bustling, and gossip about Xiao Ziheng's wedding night escapade filled the air. Yun Qian was furious, barely containing his rage. He had planned everything so carefully, only to have it all fall apart at the last moment. He wanted to tear the culprit limb from limb. Then, he overheard someone talking about Yun Weiniang and signaled Lin Qianru to listen. He heard someone repeating Weiniang's words from the morning before. Did you hear? The Prime Minister's eldest daughter has been spouting about wanting to be Queen of Deqi. I heard several other ladies were present when she said all that nonsense. She even said that the Prime Minister and her grandfather would force His Majesty to adopt Prince Xiao. What gall! Isn't she afraid of being beheaded? That's nothing. Someone said she insulted the imperial concubine in public, calling her a slave only fit for the worst man on earth. TSK, TSK, TSK. That's treason. She's insulting His Majesty as the worst man alive. Shoo. Keep it down. Yun Qian's eyebrows twitched. What are you afraid of? Everyone in Kyoto is saying the Prime Minister is colluding with court officials to control His Majesty. They might even be planning a coup. I wonder if His Majesty's heard all this. He knows everything by now, believe me. What a day for gossip. Either the Crown Prince is visiting an entertainment hall, or the Prime Minister's mansion is plotting rebellion. It's unbelievable. Yun Qian abruptly changed course. He pulled back the carriage curtain, glared at the driver, and snapped, "Take us home." Chapter 62. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 62. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Master, Inger. Lin Qianru tugged at Yun Qian's sleeve. Yun Qian didn't give a damn about Inger at that moment. If he didn't get to the palace fast and clear things up, the whole Prime Minister's mansion was looking at disaster, everyone executed, treason. He couldn't handle that. Huani Inger, you're barely keeping your head. Yun Qian shook off Lin Qianru. Master, if I don't go home, I'll go to the palace. If I don't go, Inger's doomed. Yun Qian hauled Lin Qianru out of the carriage and ignored her. To the driver, he barked, "Step on it." Back to the Prime Minister's mansion. Yes, sir. That he had to get back and change, then plead his case with the emperor. He had no intention of rebelling, or playing emperor himself. That was ridiculous, all Yun Weiniang's fault, getting him accused of treason. Watching the carriage pull away, Lin Qianru looked lost. Master. Chu Meng hurried to her side. Madam, the Crown Princess is still waiting. Right. Inger. She pushed everything else out of her head. The two walked towards Prince Wenxuan's mansion. Inside, Xiao Ziheng stared at Yun Weiniang, disgusted by her injuries. He stood well back, as if she was something filthy. Her body was covered with bite marks, blue and purple. Who knew how many men had used her? Disgusting. Your Highness, the doctor's here. Prince Wenxuan, thinking of the fetus, had sent for the royal physician again, to see if the baby was still alive. Huan Ping adjusted the bed curtains, revealing Yun Weiniang's hand, once pale and soft, now it was covered in bite marks. Huan Ping quickly covered it with her sleeve, leaving only the wrist for the pulse. The doctor took her pulse, stood, and addressed Prince Wenxuan. Your Highness, the Crown Princess, the fetus is fine. He didn't dare say more. Just taking a pulse, he could tell what she'd been through. Everyone had been looking for the Crown Prince all morning, and the Crown Prince had been kidnapped. Anyone could guess the Crown Princess had been thrown into some dirty hole, just like the prince. So many injuries. How could anyone do that to her? You know what to say. Prince Wenxuan warned. Yes, sir. Not a word from me. Xiao Ziheng stepped forward, pulled the doctor aside, and whispered, the fetus can't be allowed to live. Prescribe an abortion pill. The doctor didn't answer, but looked at Prince Wenxuan. Prince Wenxuan hadn't heard what they were discussing, but the doctor kept looking at him, so he stepped closer. What are you two talking about? The doctor looked at the prince, embarrassed, unsure if he should speak. Xiao Ziheng nodded. Your Highness, he wants me to prescribe an abortion pill. Prince Wenxuan was surprised. He hadn't realized his son felt the same way he did. He clapped Xiao Ziheng on the shoulder. Let's talk outside. Xiao Ziheng followed Prince Wenxuan to the study. Father, I don't want this child. With a mother like that, passed around like she was nothing, the child will suffer from day one. Better to end it now. It's only a fetus. As for Yun Weiniang, let's keep her alive for now. She's still useful. When I'm secure, we can finish her off with a dose of poison. My son has grown up. Sensible. You're not soft-hearted when it comes to women. You're decisive and ruthless. I wanted to discuss this with you, but you and I see eye to eye. Father, I grew up at your side. I learned from you, from your decisiveness. Go get the royal physician to prescribe the medicine. Yes, father. He'd thought his father would object. Instead, they were in perfect agreement. Leaving the study, he found the doctor still waiting in the yard. He said evenly, prescribe something. Yes, Your Highness. The doctor left with his medicine box. He had to go back to his office to prepare the medication. Just then, a servant, Xiao Si, came in and bowed respectfully to Xiao Ziheng. Your Highness, the Prime Minister's wife is here. Outside the mansion. Do you want to let her in? Xiao Ziheng snapped. Tell the Prime Minister's wife the Crown Princess isn't feeling well. The palace was just attacked and her parents can't visit. Tell her to go home and wait until the Crown Princess is better. What a nuisance. He had enough on his plate without dealing with this. Prince Wenxuan watched his son handle the situation with composure, a satisfied smile on his face. Xiao Minchen's son, through and through. Yun Qian returned to the Prime Minister's mansion, changed his clothes, and was heading out when Lu Da's apprentice, Li Zheng, marched into the Prime Minister's mansion with a squad of guards. Your Excellency, Prime Minister. Good day. Li Zheng's greeting dripped with sarcasm. Yun Qian's heart skipped a beat. No way. Could His Majesty be that fast? Eunuch Li. What brings you here? Yun Qian asked cautiously. Li Zheng produced the imperial edict without another word. Prime Minister Yun, I am here to deliver His Majesty's decree. Please prepare to receive the decree. Yun Qian's face went white. He sank to his knees, shaking. Was this really the end? By the grace of heaven, the Emperor decrees, Prime Minister Yun Qian has deceived superiors and subordinates, oppressed the people, taken bribes and twisted the law, formed cliques, and stands accused of treason. He is hereby dismissed from his post and his house seized, his property confiscated, and his entire family sent to prison to await judgment. Tremble before this. Yun Qian collapsed, all strength gone. Receive the decree, Prime Minister. Oh, wait. You've been dismissed. You're nothing now. Li Zheng shoved the imperial edict into Yun Qian's arms and turned to leave. Several other families who had colluded with Yun Qian were also having their homes seized. Those guilty of serious crimes were being dismissed and investigated. Next up, the Lin family of the right capital censor, then the former Zhang family, and then Prince Wenxuan's family. Yun Qian saw Li Zheng about to leave and scrambled to his feet. Eunuch Li. I've been framed. I'm not a traitor. I'm not corrupt. I don't oppress anyone. Li Zheng turned back. Ha! Yun Qian, you can't hide anything. You know damn well if you're corrupt, if you've oppressed the people, and if you were planning to overthrow His Majesty. If you didn't still have an imperial concubine in the palace, you'd be dead already. You should be grateful you raised a useful daughter. Your position's gone, but at least you're alive. Yun Qian crumpled to the ground, eyes glazed, unable to understand how this had all happened so fast. He'd hidden all his embezzlement ledgers. How could His Majesty have found out? Chapter 63. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the Emperor doted on him every night. 63. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Li Zheng left, the censors and inspectors led soldiers to raid the Prime Minister's mansion. Yun Qian and Yun Wenhan were placed under guard. Yun Qian could only watch, resentment toward Yun Weiniang boiling inside him. He blamed her reckless words for their predicament and wished he could strangle her. Yun Wenhan shared his father's anger. He glared at Yun Qian and whined, "Dad, it's all my sister's fault. If she hadn't spouted such nonsense, the emperor wouldn't be so mad at us. She's a real jinx. Now the prime minister's mansion is paying the price for her big mouth. Can't she just keep her thoughts to herself?" Who says things like that out loud? He'd heard people repeating her words all over town, even echoing her exact phrases. Yun Qian's face darkened. "If I'd known she'd bring such trouble down on us, I never would have let her stay." Meanwhile, Lin Qianru, despite Xiaoxi's attempts to dissuade her, insisted on going to the palace. The gatekeepers looked at her with disdain, thinking, Prime Minister's wife. More like a common shrew. They ignored her pleas and warnings. Eventually, Xiaoxi gave up, refusing to let her pass no matter how much she protested. Lin Qianru worried that Yun Weining had forgotten all about proper manners and what it meant to be a good wife and loving mother. Just then, the minister of the Dali Temple arrived at Prince Wenxuan's mansion with 20 men. Hearing the news, Xiaoxi rushed to report it. 15 minutes later, Xiaoxi returned with a smile, saying respectfully, "Sir, the prince invites you in." The minister of the Dali Temple glanced at Lin Qianru, said nothing, and led his men inside. Lin Qianru tried to follow, but the gatekeepers quickly stopped her. Fuming, Lin Qianru stomped her foot in frustration. Inside the mansion, the minister of Dali Temple addressed Prince Wenxuan. "You've probably heard about the crown prince's appearance in Huanguan this morning." The prince nodded, a faint smile on his face. "Indeed, I have." And he'd heard other rumors, ones that might implicate Prince Wenxuan's own palace. But seeing the prince's innocent expression, he kept those to himself. Since Prince Wenxuan had reported the case to Dali Temple, he would simply do his duty. The rest was none of his concern. Actually, the incident this morning happened because the prince was kidnapped last night. The minister of Dali Temple was taken aback. He'd been shocked enough by the report of a theft, but this was even more astonishing. Despite his surprise, his position demanded composure. Arriving at the empty warehouse, the minister couldn't help but want to laugh. How much property must have been stored in a warehouse this size? It's all gone without a trace. "Please, Your Highness," he said, "tell me everything that happened yesterday in detail." Nothing unusual happened. After Ziheng's visit, the princess and I greeted guests. The evening was unremarkable. None of the guards noticed anything amiss. I questioned them all this morning, and they swore they patrolled all night, never leaving their posts or dozing off. But the prince was kidnapped, and the palace treasury, the princesses and my private coffers, and even the prince's concubine's dowry, were all stolen. It's baffling how a group could move so much without alerting anyone. He felt as though everything had vanished into thin air, but he had no proof. Despite searching, the minister of Dali Temple found no evidence. He shared Prince Wenxuan's feeling. The stolen goods had simply disappeared. After a moment, the minister said with a hint of irony, "Your Highness, I can't help but feel that these belongings simply vanished. Moving that much stuff, wouldn't someone have noticed something? You have at least 200 or 300 guards patrolling, and yet no one saw or heard anything. Were they all blind and deaf?" "I feel the same way," said the prince. "I searched and searched, but found no useful clues. That's why I reported it to Dali Temple, hoping you could investigate." Before the minister could reply, Li Zheng entered with a few eunuchs. Eunuchly, Prince Wenxuan asked, "What brings you here?" "Your Highness," Li Zheng said obsequiously, "I'm here to deliver His Majesty's decree." He didn't dare offend Prince Wenxuan. "Does His Majesty have instructions for me?" "Yes. Yun Qian is accused of corruption, perverting the law, oppressing the people, deceiving superiors, forming cliques, and engaging in conspiracy. The prince's palace is also implicated. His Majesty believes the palace was involved in the rebellion and colluded with Yun Qian. Furthermore, the imperial concubine made outrageous claims about wanting to be empress and control His Majesty. Out of mercy and regard for your brotherhood, His Majesty will show leniency. All the residents of Prince Wenxuan's palace are to be confined for 1 year and fined a year's income." Hearing this, Prince Wenxuan's face turned ashen. He now saw Yun Weining as nothing but a troublemaking scapegoat. Since she'd entered his household, there'd been nothing but trouble. He regretted letting his son marry her. Thank you, Eunuch Li, tell His Majesty that I will accept my punishment and remain within the confines of Prince Wenshuan's mansion. He didn't dare say anything more in his defense. The emperor wasn't a fool. Any further words would only make things worse. It was better to accept the punishment, hoping to allay the emperor's suspicions. I will deliver your words to His Majesty. Remembering the theft, Prince Wenshuan said, Eunuch Li, please wait a moment. I'd like you to deliver a memorial to His Majesty. Since the prince was specifically asking for his help, Li Jing couldn't refuse. Very well, Your Highness. Please go and write it. As Prince Wenshuan left, Li Jing turned to the minister of the Dali Temple, puzzled. What brings you to the palace? The minister smiled politely. The private treasuries and warehouses of several members of the prince's palace were stolen last night. The prince reported it to Dali Temple, and I'm here to investigate. Oh. This is a royal palace, with iron walls and heavy guards. How could a place so well defended be robbed? Was it a case of an inside job? He wondered. The minister of Dali Temple saw right through his thoughts, as he secretly shared that feeling. His earlier words to Prince Wenshuan were merely for show. How could something vanish into thin air? And with so many guards, why did no one notice? Chapter 64. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 64. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What else could it be besides guarding and stealing? Maybe Wang Fu Kong was worried about getting caught because of what he did with the money, so he covered his tracks by claiming the warehouse had been robbed. Reporting a crime to Dali Temple gave him a plausible reason to make it seem like the palace was genuinely robbed, and that King Wenshuan was manipulating Dali Temple. I haven't found any leads, so I can't say for sure. A short while later, King Wenshuan arrived with a booklet in hand. Stopping in front of Li Zheng, King Wenshuan gave him the booklet along with a heavy purse. Thank you, Eunuch Li. This is a little something for the attendants. I appreciate you making the trip. Li Zheng didn't hesitate. He accepted the purse and said respectfully, Your Majesty, you're welcome. I'll be heading back to the palace now. Eunuch Li, take care. After Li Zheng left, the minister of Dali Temple looked at King Wenshuan. Your Majesty, what's this? That everyone in King Wenshuan's palace has been fined and grounded. It seems strange that he is still at the palace. Mr. Dali Temple, I've written a memorial to His Majesty, requesting that Dali Temple investigate the case. You can head back now. I'll have someone inform you if His Majesty approves. The minister of Dali Temple bowed. Then I'll be on my way. Back at the palace, Xiao Zhinya put down his brush, handed the imperial edict to Li Zheng, and took Lu De to Mengyu Palace. Inside the Mengyu Palace bedroom, he found Yun Yuran leaning against the headboard, reading a book. He approached her quietly. He wanted to surprise her, but as soon as he got close, Yun Yuran looked up and smiled brightly. You're here. Aren't you supposed to be reviewing memorials today? Xiao Zhinya didn't answer. How did you know I was here? Ran. My nose is pretty good. As soon as you stepped into the room, I smelled you. Dog nose, Xiao Zhinya teased. Yun Yuran put down her book, poked him in the chest, and said playfully, If I have a dog's nose, what does that make you? How did I get involved? I'm already a dog, and you're my husband. Doesn't that mean you're a dog too? Xiao Zhinya didn't expect to be outsmarted. Ha ha ha. Naughty, he said, laughing. After he was done laughing, he said, I was working on memorials until late last night. I thought I'd disturb you if I came back so late, so I stayed in Yangxin Hall. Did the baby give you any trouble? He put his hand on her belly. Yun Yuran rolled her eyes. The baby is just a little sprout. How can it cause trouble? That little sprout is my treasure. Yun Yuran suddenly pouted, pretending to be upset. They're your babies. What about me? Xiao Zhinya looked at her pouty mouth, cute and tempting like a cherry. He scooped her up, sat her on his lap, held the back of her head, and kissed her hard. It happened so fast. She barely had time to sit down before his kisses were all over her. He was aggressive, like a snake darting around, tangling with her tongue. Yun Yuran didn't back down. She met his aggression. Eventually, Xiao Zhenye had to give up. He felt like he was going to explode if he didn't stop. Yun Yuran felt it too. She pushed him back and leaned over him. With a wicked smile, she showed her bulging veins. Xiao Zhenye didn't expect her to be so fierce, even more so than him, but he enjoyed it. An hour later, Yun Yuran held out her hands. "Look, they're all red." Xiao Zhenye held her hands and blew on them. "Thank you for your hard work, Ran Ran." After chatting for a while, Xiao Zhenye said, "Ran Ran, the Prime Minister's office has been corrupt, taking bribes, colluding with other officials, and playing favorites. I jailed him and confiscated his property. Are you mad at me?" "Why would I be mad? If I were, I wouldn't have sent you those account books this morning." "Where did you get the account books?" That he was confused. He had been with her all day yesterday and didn't see where she got them. "The Prime Minister's mansion." She didn't elaborate, and Xiao Zhenye didn't press the issue. "Thank you, Ran Ran. Without those account books, I wouldn't have been able to touch the Prime Minister for a while. So you wouldn't think I'm cold-hearted and don't care about my family." "Of course not. You're sensible and loyal to me. You didn't break the law to protect them. I'm grateful, not thinking you're cold-blooded." That evening, Xiao Zhenye frowned when he heard the report from his men. The Prime Minister's mansion was empty except for what was on display. The warehouses and granaries were bare. After interrogating Yun Qian, they found that he had no idea when his warehouse was emptied. When Li Jing returned, he presented King Wenshuan's request. The emperor saw that King Wenshuan's palace had been ransacked and that he wanted Dali Temple to investigate. He approved it without hesitation. He wanted to see what Xiao Mintian was up to. Yun Weiniang had gone crazy since her miscarriage. Xiao Ziheng couldn't stand her. Not long after Yun Qian was imprisoned, he divorced her. Whenever he looked at her, he thought of what she had been through and felt like he was being cuckolded. 2 months later, Yun Qian's family was stripped of their titles and sent to Ningguda. Today, something huge happened in court. The emperor announced that the imperial concubine was 5 months pregnant. The courtiers were shocked. Ever since Yun Qian was jailed and everyone in Wenshuan's palace was punished, anyone who got close to them was demoted or beheaded. No one dared to pressure the emperor to name an heir. They were scared. They were afraid the emperor would get angry and order their homes to be raided, destroying their families. Of course, a few loyal officials would still occasionally speak up, but the emperor ignored them, so they gave up. When the news broke today, those loyal veterans cried, with tears streaming down their faces. They shouted, "Heaven has eyes. His Majesty finally has an heir. The Daki dynasty will continue. It's a blessing from our ancestors." Chapter 65. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 65. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Zhenye gently placed his hand on Yun Yuran's belly, feeling the flutter of life inside. He was awestruck, his heart swelled with emotion. He had a wife, children, his life was complete. In the soft light, her face was beautiful, a vision he could happily gaze at forever. Xiao Zhenye looked at her swollen belly, a furrow of worry on his brow. "Does this make you uncomfortable?" Yun Yuran smiled serenely and shook her head. "Not really, though the little ones can be a bit rambunctious sometimes." As Yun Yuran's pregnancy progressed, Xiao Zhenye rarely left her side, except for official duties. He even had state papers brought to Mingyu Hall to review, surrounded by layers of guards to ensure absolute security. Over 4 months passed. The emperor and the queen mother paced anxiously outside the birthing room, each blood-soaked basin carried out plunging their spirits lower. Inside, the sounds of labor had dwindled. Yun Yuran's voice now silent, Xiao Zhenye was gripped by fear. Terrified of losing Yun Yuran, he wanted to burst into the room, to be by her side, offering encouragement and strength, but tradition forbade it, and he knew the reasons why men were typically barred from childbirth. Superstition warned of bad luck interfering with a man's fortunes. Others feared that witnessing the ordeal would scar a man, making him unable to be intimate with his wife. He scoffed at the superstition. How could a man resent a woman who risked everything to bring his children into the world? This enlightened view, he knew, was a testament to Yun Yuran's influence. the Queen Mother and Emperor waited, the hours stretching from dusk until dawn. As the first rays of sun broke through the darkness, a powerful cry echoed from the birthing room. Xiao Zhenye's legs buckled beneath him. He heard the baby's cry, a sign that Yun Yuran was alive. He looked up, tears streaming down his face, and laughed, "Mother, I have a son. An heir." Witnessing the emperor's unrestrained joy, the Queen Mother wept as well, tears tracing lines down her weathered cheeks. Yes, the imperial line continues. Guizhi, go in and see why they haven't brought out my grandson. Yes, Your Majesty. Before Aunt Guizhi could move, another, even louder cry filled the air. Even the Queen Mother, normally composed, felt her knees weaken. Guizhi, help me, I can barely stand. Luda, tears in his own eyes, helped Xiao Zhenye to his feet, deeply moved by the imperial concubine's double blessing upon the emperor and the realm. Yun Yuran had taken pain-relieving herbs before the birth. While tired, her mind was clear, and she felt far from exhausted. Despite the lack of pain, she had pushed hard during the final stages of labor. She turned to Chunhua and Chuyue. Bring that midwife out here and hand her over to His Majesty. We need to find out who wants me dead. During the delivery, a midwife had tried to harm her when no one was looking. If not for the system's warning, she might have been seriously hurt. Reacting quickly, she had kicked the midwife away. Seeing the attack, the other midwives immediately restrained the would-be assassin. Chuyue dragged the midwife out, threw open the doors, and shoved her before the emperor. Your Majesty, this midwife attempted to harm the empress. The empress requests that she be imprisoned and questioned about who sent her and why. Xiao Zhenye flew into a rage, kicking the midwife squarely in the chest. Have I been too lenient? Allowing these monsters to threaten my heir? The midwife coughed up blood, clutching her chest, and cried out, Your Majesty, I swear I didn't mean to harm the imperial concubine. I'm being framed. I have no quarrel with her. Why would I plot against her? Please, investigate. The emperor's expression hardened, his eyes flashing with deadly intent. Investigate, you say? I'll handle that. He turned to Luda. Take her to the Xinqing department for interrogation. I want the truth, no matter what it takes. Find out who dared to target my heir and the imperial concubine. I will wipe out their entire family. Yes, Your Majesty, I'll see to it immediately. The emperor's wrath was legendary. After Luda departed, two nannies emerged from the birthing room, each carrying a newborn. The emperor ignored the children, pushing past them into the room. The midwives started to protest, but one look at his face silenced them. Who were they to question the emperor's will? Ran, how are you? Are you in pain? Thank you for everything. Seeing Yun Yuran's pale face, the emperor felt a pang of anguish, as if his own bones were being crushed. Despite his elation at the baby's cries, his greatest fear was for Yun Yuran's well-being. The thought of a life without her filled him with dread. Even with all the power of the great Qi kingdom, he would be nothing more than a living ghost. Yun Yuran saw the tears in his eyes and smiled softly. Yi, don't worry. I'm fine. I'm happy to have given you these children. It's my purpose. The emperor didn't fully understand her words, his heart still pounding with anxiety. He took her hand, kissed it, and vowed, on your full moon, I will make you empress, and our son the crown prince. Seeing the longing in the emperor's eyes, Yun Yuran asked, Yi, have you seen our sons? Aren't they beautiful? Xiao Zhenye looked sheepish, admitting he had been too preoccupied with Yun Yuran to pay attention to the children. Yun Yuran smiled knowingly. Xiao Zhenye, contrite, said, I was so worried about you, I forgot. Please don't be angry. Yun Yuran squeezed his hand, her smile radiant. Why would I be angry? You put me first. It makes me happy. It proves I was right about you. Xiao Zhenye stroked her cheek tenderly and adjusted her blankets. One of the midwives spoke. Your Majesty, the birthing room is still full of the smell of blood. It's not good for the imperial concubine's rest. Perhaps you should have her moved to her chambers. Without a word, Xiao Zhenye carefully wrapped Yun Yuran in a quilt. He lifted her gently in his arms and carried her from the birthing room to her bedroom. Chapter 66. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 66. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He gently laid Yun Yuran on the bed, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Get some sleep, Ran. I'll watch over you." "Okay," Yun Yuran mumbled, already feeling drowsy. She closed her eyes, and soon her breathing became deep and even. Chunhua and Chuyue were deeply touched by the emperor's tenderness towards Yun Yuran. Aunt Yu's eyes were also misty as she stood with her head bowed, awaiting the emperor's instructions. Meanwhile, the queen mother had completely forgotten about the emperor since laying eyes on the twins. She'd been glued to the nannies, watching them tidy up and feed the babies. When the little ones were full and started blowing bubbles, the queen mother's heart melted. She eagerly took one of the children from a nanny, kissing the baby's forehead with a loving smile. "My precious granddaughter," she cooed, "Grandma has missed you so much. I've been waiting years to meet you." Anyone overhearing would think she was pining for a young lover. Initially, when the queen mother picked up the little princess, Aunt Guizhi thought she'd made a mistake. But before she could correct her, the queen mother called the baby her granddaughter, and Guizhi realized the queen mother knew exactly what she was doing. She just wondered why the queen mother had held the little princess first instead of the little prince. Sensing Aunt Guizhi's confusion, she chuckled, "Girls are more delicate, and boys need to be tougher. I was afraid the little princess would cry if I held the prince first." After a few minutes, the queen mother placed the little princess back in her nanny's arms. Then, she took the little prince from the other nanny and gazed at him adoringly. His tiny face was the spitting image of the emperor as a child, making the queen mother love him even more. He was a miniature version of her son. Aunt Guizhi commented, "The imperial concubine is truly blessed. The little princess looks just like her, and the little prince looks like your majesty." Yes, the queen mother agreed, she certainly knows how to give birth. Just then, Aunt Yu and Chunhua entered the nursery and bowed in unison, "Greetings, Queen Mother." "Rise," the Queen Mother said. "What can I do for the imperial concubine?" Aunt Yu stood and replied, "Your Majesty, the imperial concubine is well. The emperor has asked us to bring the little prince and princess to him. He can't come here himself. Must he send someone to snatch my grandchildren away?" Aunt Guizhi interjected, "Your Majesty, you didn't sleep at all last night. You should return to Shokong Palace and rest. When you're refreshed, we can visit the little prince and princess again tomorrow. They'll be right here in Mingyu Palace, they aren't going anywhere." Hearing Aunt Guizhi's words, the queen mother realized she was indeed exhausted. She had been so overjoyed that she hadn't noticed her fatigue. The queen mother waved her hand, "All right, take the little prince and princess. But be careful, don't jostle my little darlings." Aunt Yu and Chunhua bowed to the queen mother and said, "Yes, Queen Mother. We promise to protect the little prince and princess." Then, the queen mother stood up, supported by Aunt Guizhi. She left the infant hall and returned to Shokong Palace. Aunt Yu and Chunhua carefully took the babies from the nannies and returned to Yun Yuran's bedroom. Xiao Zhinya stared at the two babies blowing bubbles, hesitant to even hold them for fear of hurting them. Their soft, white little faces were smaller than his palm. Just the thought of touching them made his stomach clench, worried he'd crush them. Aunt Yu saw the emperor's hesitation and stepped forward, saying, "Your Majesty, just gently cradle the little princess in your arms, supporting her head with your arm. That's all it takes. Babies love this position." Following Aunt Yu's demonstration, Xiao Zhinya realized it wasn't so difficult after all. Soon, he was holding both children with ease. Seeing one child looked like him and the other like Yun Yuran, his heart overflowed with gratitude. He was grateful to Yun Yuran for being with him and for giving birth to his children. What more could a husband ask for? The first thing Yun Yuran did upon waking was to buy healing pills, firming pills, and spiritual energy water from the system store. The healing pills repaired the damage to her body after childbirth, making her abdomen as tight as a virgin again. She didn't want it stretched out after giving birth. The spiritual energy water would reshape her muscles and bones, making her body healthier and stronger. Anyway, when she was with the emperor, she could just order him around. "Come on, use that powerful and domineering body to fight. Squander your sweat and pester us endlessly." Yun Yuran continued to buy intelligence pills, smart pills, and physical fitness pills in the system. All intelligence pills would develop the children's minds, and the smart pills would make already bright children even more intelligent. The physical fitness pills would keep the two children healthy, free from illness and pain, forever. Although she spent 900 points in one go, with 600 points going to the children, Yun Yuran didn't regret it. Since she had brought them into this world, she naturally wanted to give them the best of everything, give them sharp minds, wisdom, and healthy, pain-free bodies. This was Yun Yuran's profound maternal love for them. During the past year with the emperor, she had also earned 2,000 points from him, so she didn't feel too bad about spending them. That day, the emperor came to tell Yun Yuran that the person who had tried to harm her during childbirth had been found. Although Yun Yuran already knew who it was, she still pretended to be surprised, asking, "Your Majesty, who was behind it? Why would anyone want to harm me? I've never offended anyone." That the emperor felt guilty and avoided Yun Yuran's gaze. It was the imperial concubine. "She hates you for stealing my favor and even more for carrying my child, so she wanted to kill you and raise your children as her own. A woman bleeds heavily during childbirth. No one pays attention to this, so she wanted to use the midwife to make me bleed to death. Yes, that's what she planned. But rest assured, Ran, I've already had her executed. Her entire family has been imprisoned and will be executed in 6 months. Oh. So, Yi, did you love her? Do you think I stole her love?" Xiaoxunya tapped her forehead playfully. "What are you thinking? How could I think that way? Besides, it's not like I loved her. She just had a sweet tongue and knew how to flatter me. I just liked to visit her when I was feeling down." "Sweet words, just how many women's mouths have you tasted?" As she said that, her face changed, as if she felt nauseous. Xiaoxunya immediately explained anxiously, Ran, I've never kissed another woman except you. You have to believe me. I'm not lying." Yun Yuran finally suppressed the urge to vomit. "You better not be lying to me, or else." She didn't finish the sentence, but her eyes flickered suggestively. Her gaze was subtle, but Xiaoxunya caught it nonetheless. He clamped his legs together tightly, fearing that his imperial concubine might suddenly become displeased and turn him into a eunuch again. It hadn't been long since he'd recovered. And it was only because she wanted it that he was allowed to recover. Ever since he had learned that she had turned him into a eunuch and that she could restore him, he had never worried about his failure. 2 months ago, she had suddenly wrapped her arms around his neck and said that she wanted him, that it would be difficult for her not to do so. But she didn't know how she did it, but just touching him made him as hard as iron. He had since recovered. Chapter 67. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 67. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Soon, it was time to celebrate the twins' 1-month birthday. Yun Yuran, dressed with graceful elegance, entered the palace, drawing gasps from all the ladies. She was radiant, like a goddess descending from the heavens. Her exquisite dress made her even more dazzling. The ladies and ministers bowed. "Greetings, imperial concubine." Yun Yuran offered a captivating smile. "Please, rise." "Thank you, your majesty." Everyone took their seats. Yun Yuran walked to the emperor, who beamed and took her hand. Ran, you're breathtaking today. Absolutely stunning." Yun Yuran squeezed his hand, raising an eyebrow. "Smooth talker. I mean it." He seemed like a loyal dog, eager for his master's approval. "Well, thank you for your kindness." The emperor nodded to Luda, who announced, "Yun Yuran is hereby named queen. The newborn prince is crowned crown prince, and the little princess, eldest princess, protector of the realm. The queen's coronation will be held 1 month from today." He wanted Yun Yuran to rest. The coronation ceremony was elaborate, and he didn't want to burden her. After the banquet, Yun Yuran returned to Menu Palace with the children. Back in her chambers, she instructed the nannies to put the babies in their cribs and dismissed the maids. The moment the door closed, Yun Yuran collapsed onto the bed, all composure gone. She was exhausted. She had to stand tall, sit straight, and had no freedom. The twins blinked, confused by their mother's sudden transformation. Xiaoxunya gently opened the door and found Yun Yuran sprawled on the bed. He smiled wryly, closed the door, and quietly went to her side. The babies sensed him and looked up at their father. Seeing who it was, they smacked their lips and drifted back to sleep. The emperor was filled with happiness. From Yun Yuren's motionless posture, Xiao Zhenye knew she was asleep. He knelt, took off her shoes and socks, removed her hairpins, and straightened her out. He brought water to wash her face and hands, then knelt to wash her feet, cleaning each toe. He carefully lifted her onto the pillow, pulled up the quilt, and covered her. Turning, he opened the door and had the nannies take the children back to their room. He instructed Chen Hua and Chuyue to prepare food so Yun Yuran could eat whenever. She woke up, so thoughtful, listening to him. Yun Yuran smiled. Her careful training was paying off. She had been awake since he removed her shoes but pretended to sleep. She was pleased with his attentiveness. The emperor washed up and lay down beside Yun Yuran. She immediately snuggled up to him, surprising him. He had wanted her tonight but hadn't wanted to wake her. Now that she initiated it, he couldn't resist. The candlelight flickered, illuminating their entwined bodies. Amorous sounds filled the room all night. At dawn, Xiao Zhenye rose, dressed, kissed her forehead, and left. Rest well. Don't get up early, sleep in. Yun Yuran pouted. Who are you underestimating? I'm not tired. I could go a few more rounds, that he laughed. Of course, Ran is the strongest. I'm happy to lose. After he left, Yun Yuran said, System, why does it feel like the emperor's draining my energy? He's not draining you, he's drawing energy to replenish his own and heal minor ailments. Isn't that the same? Xiao Ran, you have so much wood-type energy, why worry? It's nothing to you. He just gets a little stronger with you. Don't you like his physique? Oh. He can absorb my wood energy. Why didn't you say so? If you didn't let him touch you, how could you have babies? You can't have them alone. Then why tell me now? You've already had kids. Some are better than none. You have an heir. It's okay if you don't let him touch you anymore. So, you're abandoning me after using me. Nobody's taking advantage of you, this is your next task. Right. Yun Yuran ignored the system. She circulated her energy, instantly erasing her fatigue and feeling refreshed. Yun Yuran wasn't stingy, it was just a little wood energy, and she suffered no loss. 3 years later, the queen gave birth to quadruplets, shocking the capital. The queen is incredible. For at once, and all princes. I'm so jealous. Ministers gazed at Yun Yuran with admiration. In the 5th year, news came again. The queen had quadruplets again, 2 princes and 2 princesses. Noble ladies went wild. They wanted to know how Yun Yuran had so many multiples and what her secret was. The emperor had 10 children before 50, a blessed life. After Yun Yuran's 3rd pregnancy, the emperor refused to let her have more. She conceived her 3rd child without telling him. When he found out, it was too late. Each birth caused him agony. He would gladly die for her. Yun Yuran's children received pills and were exceptionally intelligent and healthy. At 15, she gave them various pills, anything beneficial, she bought without hesitation. The children were smart and knew the queen was different. They knew she meant well and ate whatever she offered. They were united, with no disagreements. On the crown prince's 20th birthday, Xiao Zhenye abdicated, passing the throne to him. The other 6 princes did not complain. They vowed to protect Daqi, protect the land for the crown prince, and be his strongest support. Although Yun Yuran secretly gave the emperor pills, life comes to an end. Chapter 68. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 68. N. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On Xiao Zhenye's 89th birthday, all 10 of his sons came to celebrate. He had over 30 grandsons running around. The older ones were too shy to bother him, but the younger ones clung to his legs, playfully begging for treats. He felt his life had been worthwhile. Before meeting Yun Yuran, he'd never imagined having children, let alone a house full of grandkids. It seemed that ever since she came into his life, things had been steadily improving. The next day, Xiao Zhenye couldn't get out of bed. The system alerted Yun Yuran that the emperor was nearing his end. Yun Yuran quickly sent word to the emperor, his 6 sons, and 3 daughters. Soon, the emperor arrived with the empress, the crown prince, and their other children. the 6 princes and 3 princesses also arrived with their wives and children. Thanks to Yun Yuren's influence, they had all married for love, each taking only one wife. The men the princesses married were carefully chosen and fiercely loyal, even if they harbored ill intentions. These husbands wouldn't dare act out of line with the emperor and princes, those protective brothers and madmen, watching over their sisters. Besides, the princesses were genuinely devoted to each other, freely sharing any concerns they had. They embraced Yun Yuren's belief in lifelong commitment. Being numerous and united, no one had ever dared to cause trouble within the palace walls. With so many siblings, anyone who tried to cause problems would face a united front. More than enough to deal with any threat. Tears welled in Xiao Zhenye's eyes as he looked at his 10 children. His voice was weak as he said, "After I'm gone, you brothers and sisters must stick together. Don't let anyone turn you against each other. Don't let the country fall into chaos, and don't let the people suffer. You must unite and protect our Xiao family." His 10 children wept, sobbing, "Father, don't worry. We will support our eldest brother and protect the Xiao family's country. We'll never let outsiders covet it." Xiao Zhenye nodded, a satisfied smile on his face. "Good, you are truly my children. I'm proud of you." He looked at Yun Yuren and said to the emperor, "Crown prince, and princesses, leave us. I want to speak with your mother, the empress." Once they were alone, Xiao Zhenye forced a smile and said, Ran, I can't be with you any longer. You'll have to walk the rest of the path alone." Looking at Yun Yuren, who remained as beautiful as ever, Xiao Zhenye reached out and stroked her cheek. Her skin was still soft and fair, her hair thick and black, with only a few fine lines around her eyes. Anyone who didn't know her age would think she was in her early 40s. My Ran is still as radiant and charming as ever. Her beauty is breathtaking. He couldn't bear to leave Yun Yuren, but his time had come. Yun Yuren's face was tear-streaked, her eyes swollen from crying. She held his hand tightly, bringing it to her lips as if to give him strength. You're still as smooth-talking as ever, always knowing how to make me happy. Ran, don't cry. It breaks my heart." He told Yun Yuren not to cry, but tears streamed down his own face. Yun Yuren wiped away his tears, sobbing, "You feel sorry for me, but don't I feel sorry for you? Can you hold me again?" he asked, barely able to speak. Yun Yuren immediately embraced him, kissing his forehead. Ran, my biggest regret is not meeting you sooner and not being pure when we met, even though you never said it. I know it bothered you. If I had known I would meet you, I would have avoided those women in the harem, even if it killed me. Even though I never touched another woman after meeting you, I still feel guilty. Remember that time in Fengchao Palace, when I almost slept with the queen's concubine? I knew you must have been furious, so you stopped me." Yun Yuren was surprised. "How did you know it was me who made you, incapable?" Xiao Zhenye smiled. "When your sister married Xiao Ziheng, I overheard your conversation with Yun Ruoxue at the Prime Minister's mansion. I can read lips, too." "How did you hear that? Were you spying on me?" "I wasn't spying. You were pregnant at the time, and I was worried, so I followed you secretly. I saw you say in lip language that you were the one who made me unable to perform, and that you would fix me when you felt like it. So, you don't blame me." Though they were an old couple, they still used their pet names for each other. "Why would I blame you? It was my fault for being careless and not guarding my heart. I'm grateful. If you hadn't intervened, I would have betrayed you. I know that if I had really slept with that woman, you would have never taken me seriously again. Am I right?" Yun Yuren nodded. "Yes, if you had touched the queen's concubine, I would have left you. I already knew I was pregnant, and I would have raised our 2 children alone. So, I'm glad you made such a scene. You scared me half to death, but it was for the best. It was also my fault for being so oblivious. I didn't even notice that the woman didn't smell like you. That shows how much of a fool I was back then. Stop talking about it. It's all in the past," Yun Yuren said, covering his mouth. She didn't want to waste their precious time on these things. Ran, do you truly love me?" Xiao Zhenye asked, seeking reassurance. "Love? If I didn't love you, would I have given you so many children? If I didn't love you, would I have used my abilities to save you when your life was fading? Well, I always knew you were special, and I suspected you were secretly giving me pills. So, you knew I was different, and you didn't think I was a monster. No, I thought you were a goddess, sent to save me. Yun Yuran smiled slightly. Yes, I was sent to give you children. I knew it. Why else would someone like me, who couldn't conceive, suddenly have children? That he felt very tired and wanted to sleep. He took Yun Yuran's hand, holding it tightly, and whispered, "Kiss me." Seeing his distress, Yun Yuran leaned down and kissed him on the lips. Feeling her soft warmth, Xiaojinya closed his eyes with a sigh. When she felt him become still, Yun Yuran looked at him. Her heart ached as if it would break. I. She cried out his name over and over, tears streaming down her face. Outside, the emperor, his 6 brothers, 3 sisters, and their families knelt, shouting in unison, "Farewell, father. May you have a safe journey." Their voices were strong and filled with grief. Hearing their cries, Xiaojinya suddenly jumped up. He realized he was just a wisp of a soul. Watching Yun Yuran weeping, holding him tightly, he was heartbroken. Ran, my Ran. He wanted to hold her, but his hands passed right through her. After a moment, Yun Yuran placed Xiaojinya on the bed, opened the door, and said to the family kneeling outside. "Your father is gone, and I fear he will be lonely. I want to stay with him. When I leave, bury us together." The emperor cried out, "Mother, your husband is gone, but you still have us. Can you bear to abandon your children? My children, don't grieve. There are 10 of you, and you each have families and children of your own. You are not alone. But your father only has 1 wife. He is too lonely. I can't bear to leave him alone." After saying that, she returned to the room, lay down on the bed, and embraced Xiaojinya tightly, closing her eyes. Outside, another loud voice rang out, "Farewell, mother. Have a safe journey." They held back their tears as they shouted their farewells. Who wouldn't be heartbroken losing both parents in one day? Xiaojinya wanted to stop her, but he couldn't. He watched Yun Yuran die embracing his body. Tears flowed uncontrollably. Suddenly, he felt a force pulling him, and he lost consciousness. Following Yun Yuran's wishes, the emperor buried them together. The first story is finished. The second story, The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor, uploaded 2 chapters in the afternoon. Introduction. The 35-year-old emperor was cruel and ruthless. He was nearly murdered by his concubines in the palace as a child, and attempts were made to poison his heir. After growing up, he meticulously plotted his way to the throne. The courtiers both hated, admired, and feared him. They hated his volatile temper and his tendency to execute those who disagreed with him. They admired his devotion to his people. Since he ascended the throne, the country had prospered, but he was cold-hearted, cruel, and deeply distrustful of women, until he became captivated by a young girl who accidentally bumped into him. Chapter 69 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In a daze, Yun Yuran found herself in a vast, white space. Just then, a fairy in ancient robes floated toward her. Yun Yuran, on edge, demanded, "Who are you?" "Xiao Ran, have you forgotten your system?" "You're the system." "Why the fairy get up?" The system explained, "Given your mission's successful completion, I've upgraded and manifested as a spirit." Oh. Now that she knew it was just the system, Yun Yuran relaxed and replied calmly. She still hadn't shaken off her grief. "Xiao Ran, are you doing okay?" The system had been moved seeing her cry her eyes out. Even its emotionless core felt something. Yun Yuran sniffled and said, "Can you just park your feelings before we head to the next world? Even if you didn't say anything, I wouldn't let you tackle a mission all emotional. And you, with your aversion to men, are going to tell me how you'll face the next guy." "Thanks. All right. You popped out 10 kids in that little world. Every single one of them was amazing and gorgeous, and they made huge contributions to the future of the Daki kingdom. You basically saved that world from imploding and put it on the right track in the galaxy. Soon, Yin Yuren's emotions and memories faded away. She started to forget everything that happened in the previous world. She only vaguely remembered giving birth to 10 children. Seeing that she had recovered, the system happily said, "Xiao Ran, you raked in 200,000 points in the last world. That's 100,000 points combined from the main and side missions." Yin Yuren asked, "So where did the other 100,000 come from?" "You gave birth to 10 kids. Each kid is worth 10,000 points and 10,000 luck. 10 kids equals 100,000 points and 100,000 luck. What am I going to do with all these points? I can't use that many pills. And what's the deal with luck points? Xiao Ran, you're missing out. Now that I've upgraded, the store's got everything you can imagine. It's not just those basic pregnancy pills, beauty pills, and transformation pills anymore. Also, all your gold, silver, silks, and 11,000 tons of grain are stored in the system. If they stay there long enough, I'll have to charge some storage fees. Nothing major, just 10,000 points. Hold on, if I remember right, a space system is a newbie freebie. Why are you charging me now? Humph, without my protection, all that stuff would be sitting in that backwater world. Yin Yuren glanced at the space system, now bursting with her loot. Whatever, it seemed like a good deal. So much food, gold, silver, and silk must be worth it. What about the luck? Just hold on to it for now, you'll need it later. Okay. Let's fire up the next world. Don't you want to take a break? Nah, I want to finish the mission and head back early. Alright, the main mission in the next world is that the Emperor is too cruel and murderous. So all you have to do is win him over, and because he was poisoned as a kid to prevent him from having an heir, you'll have to heal his broken heart and give him a child. Ideally, he'll be head over heels for you. The side mission is that the original owner was supposed to be the concubine from the Taifu mansion, and she and her sister were twins. But to avoid having to enter the palace draft, the older sister tricked the original owner's fiancé into sleeping with her. Now she's knocked up. So she's using her younger sister to take her place in the palace draft, but when she got to the palace, she never even saw the emperor. 6 months after she entered the palace, everyone bullied her because she was pretty. Later, she was quietly shoved into a well and drowned. She's not ready to give up. Her wish is to climb to the top and stand next to the emperor, looking down on everyone. Sounds simple enough. Simple. The emperor hates women. He'll kill anyone he doesn't like without thinking twice. If any woman even lays a finger on him, she'll be turned into a human pig. Yin Yuren got goosebumps. That bad? What did you expect? Okay. Let's go. As soon as she said it, Yin Yuren felt herself splashing in the water. System, where am I? It's pitch black. The original owner was pushed into a well. Now you're her. System, can you at least try to be a little more helpful? That the system felt guilty and didn't answer. Never mind. Activating her power scan, she realized she was in the cold palace. It was quiet outside. Whoever pushed her probably ran away by now. Feeling guilty, she used her first-level supernatural ability to grow vines up the wall. Then she tied her waist to the vines and used them to pull herself out. She slowly emerged from the water, dripping wet. After a few seconds, she was finally out. The system was useless. If she didn't have powers, she would have been done for, and this was the cold palace. If she didn't drown, she would starve. She took a moment to catch her breath before diving into the original owner's memories. So, a year ago, the original owner met Lu Ming, the son of General Hussar. Lu Ming fell for her heart and asked the Taifu mansion to arrange a marriage. Being able to become in-laws with a first-grade Hussar general, Taifu Yun had agreed. From then on, Lu Ming and Yin Yuren were engaged. But things didn't go as planned. The Queen Mother suddenly ordered all the ladies from the high houses to participate in the talent show. Since the original owner was already engaged, there was no need to go. Everyone knew the emperor was a tyrant, and no one dared to risk entering the palace. They were afraid he would kill them without saying a word. To escape the draft, the original owner's sister used her name to meet Lu Ming. She drugged him so that he would sleep with her. Now she was pregnant. So she's using her younger sister to take her place in the palace draft. The older sister was marrying into the general's house, while the younger sister would die in the palace. Although Lu Ming hated the sister at first, her sister was very capable, and the appearance of the two of them was almost the same. Gradually, Lu Ming forgot the little emotion he had towards his original owner, and turned around and fell into his sister's arms. The older sister had a happy life with lots of kids, but the younger sister died tragically in the palace with no one caring about her. Feeling the original owner's unwillingness, Yun Yuran patted his chest, as if to comfort the original owner and to encourage himself. Chapter 70 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yun Yuran, daughter of the Taifu mansion, entered the palace and was immediately named a 6th-grade noble concubine. Her residence was in Luoying Palace, which consisted of a main hall, Zuixin Pavilion, 2 side halls, Baihua Pavilion and Siyu Pavilion, and 3 auxiliary halls, including Feishuang Pavilion, Mingyue Pavilion, and Tingxue Pavilion. Yun Yuran resided in Baihua Pavilion. The main hall was currently unoccupied, while a beauty, Jieyu, lived in one of the side halls. Yun Yuran had only 2 maids, Ingqiu and Ningxuang, who had grown up with her and accompanied her in the palace selection. Later that night, after a brief absence, she returned to Luoying Palace and Baihua Pavilion. Ingqiu, seeing Yun Yuran soaking wet, rushed to her side, grabbing her hand and asking, "My lady, where have you been? You vanished. We were worried sick." Yun Yuran asked, "Where did Ningxuang and the eunuch go?" "Everyone's been frantically searching for you since you disappeared. They're all over the place looking." "But why are you drenched?" "I accidentally fell into a puddle outside Luoying Palace." Ingqiu sighed, "My lady, I'm not stupid. It hasn't rained in ages. Where would a puddle come from?" All right. You're too smart to fool." Ingqiu shook her head, "You can't even come up with a believable excuse. Are you being careless, or I'm just smart?" Yun Yuran sheepishly touched her nose and laughed. "Okay, fine, I'll tell you. I went out for a snack and someone knocked me out from behind. I woke up in the cold palace. I was groggy, so I dumped a basin of cold water over my head to wake myself up." Ingqiu's eyes welled up, and she exclaimed, "Who's the witch who dared to hurt you?" "You poor thing." Yun Yuran was taken aback. That was quite the emotional shift. "I'm fine. Go heat up some water for a bath, or I'll freeze." "Right away, my lady. I'll get it ready." Ingqiu hurried out. Yun Yuran smiled, shook her head, and went to her bedroom to change. Soon, Ingqiu brought the hot water to the bath chamber. "Let me help you, my lady." Ingqiu assisted Yun Yuran into the tub. Yun Yuran settled into the warm water and said, "I don't need you here. Go find Ningxuang, the nanny, and Xiao Detzi. She had grown fond of them in the 6 months she'd been here." "Yes, I'll go look for them now, before they run into any trouble with the other ladies." As Yun Yuran washed, she wondered who wanted to harm her. She hadn't offended anyone since entering the palace. Could it be jealousy over her looks? Whatever, she thought. I'll sleep on it and figure it out tomorrow. She mentally opened the system shop, revealing a display of various products. There were definitely more pills than before. Right now, she only wanted pills to improve her body and appearance. She ordered adjustment pills, body fragrance pills, lordotrope and posterior pills, firming pills, softness pills, exquisite beauty pills, bright eyes and white teeth pills, spiritual energy water, strength pills, and sweet-sounding pills. She bought 1,000 points worth of pills in one go. When the pills appeared, she swallowed them down, one after another. While her figure was already good, it had some imperfections. For example, her breasts were small, maybe a B-cup at best. Her waist was a bit thick. She wanted to be able to touch her belly button with her hand from behind her back. Her voice wasn't as pleasant as she wanted. Her eyes weren't bright enough, charming enough, or seductive enough. Once the pills had taken full effect, she stepped out of the tub. As she dressed, Ingqiu and Xiao Detzi returned. "My lady, something's happened." Ingqiu's anxious voice called from outside. Yun Yuran left the bedroom. "What is it?" Xiao Detzi stepped forward quickly, reporting, my lady, we noticed you were missing and went to search for you, we split up. I couldn't find you anywhere. When I returned, I overheard people saying a palace maid had run into Empress Shi in the imperial garden. I was afraid it might be you, so I went to look, and it was Ning Xuang. She was being forced to kneel, and a nun was slapping her. I didn't dare to intervene, so I came back to see if you had returned and ask you to save Ning Xuang. I ran into Ingqiu on the way. After hearing everything, Yun Yuran said, Ingqiu, stay here. I'll go rescue Ning Xuang. But my lady, that's Empress Shi. She's much higher in rank than you. Even if you go, it won't help. So what? She's in this mess because of me. Without hesitation, she grabbed a cloak and put it on, looking at Xiao Detzi. Lead the way. Yes, my lady. Watching Yun Yuran's retreating figure, Xiao Detzi's eyes turned red. He was lucky to serve such a kind master. Some masters would ignore the plight of their servants to avoid offending higher-ranking concubines. Having been in the palace for so long, he'd seen it all. It was because he saw this mistress's kindness that he had chosen to serve her loyally. Ingqiu felt that Yun Yuran had changed somehow, though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Perhaps she had always been this way. Yun Yuran moved quickly, and soon she could hear the sound of slaps. She reached Li Muqing and quickly bowed in greeting. Greetings, Empress Shi. Li Muqing raised her eyes and glanced at her. Who are you? My name is Yun Yuran, the daughter of Master Yun. I reside in Luoying Palace. Ah. Li Muqing looked at her with interest. I've heard whispers of a beauty in Luoying Palace. I was thinking of visiting one day, but I didn't expect to meet you like this.